This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Thing though, Brett, you got a ton of room in that huge radio booth at Globe Life Field, so he can have all the room he wants. You can have all the room you want, and there'll be no complaints.
I almost feel like you should be there for that. But I did enjoy the Careless Whisper, including the extended version. It kind of gets me in the mood for maybe 10 hours of baseball with Bubba.
That's exactly right, because that's what you're going to get. And maybe a little bit quicker. Maybe it'll be a little bit quicker than you're expecting. You know, we got these rules now. What is it, 2 minutes between innings, 30 seconds between at-bats, 20 seconds between every pitch, 30-second coach visits to the mound. You think this is going to have a pretty noticeable effect on the speed of the game?
Yes, I think the main thing is going to be the 10-second rule. In other words, that batter's got to be in the box. What we're training them, in essence, to do is not to step out. We're training the third base coach, the manager, to be quicker on signals, and we're treating the pitcher not to go for walks around the mound. And I know you and I both have seen a lot of Texas League games last year, and the first couple of times I went out to those games, I felt like everything was just supersized. It was so fast. And by, the fourth or fifth game, it felt normal. And we're trying to create new habits. So I do think there's going to be kind of a residual effect. Now, whether or not, pitchers melt down because they aren't used to working that quickly or the hitters can't handle it, we'll find out. I have no doubt about that.
I saw where there's some major league pitchers that are changing their deliveries, totally changing their deliveries because they've got to get rid of the ball at the end of the clock. College baseball, you have to be in the middle of your windup or at least start your deliveries. So you don't have to be that dramatic as far as changing the delivery is concerned. In the majors, though, I think it's going to be a real problem for some guys who, have big windups because you can't afford to have that big windup now.
Well, the difference is, of course, we have 30 spring training games for these guys to iron out a lot of their changes. And my goodness, there's no shortage of changes. And I think it was Jason Stark who wrote an article talking about him where he called it a blank show and blank lines with hit. And that's what he's expecting spring training to be like. We don't get that benefit. We don't. The scrimmages and the preseason work will be nothing compared to really just playing the first game for real tomorrow night. So the colleges are going to have to work through it in a sense that the major leagues will have spring training to do it. But, we both love this game, but we realize maybe we're in the minority sometimes. I think if we can just find a way to improve this game, make it better, I'm all for it, even if it does mean it's going to be a little bit unusual, and there's certainly going to be some bumps in the road over the next few weeks.
That is one of the differences, Matt, between college and pro sports. I mean, in every professional sport, you have a preseason, a defined preseason that also counts a certain number of games, exhibitions.
Or you play Texas with no TV.
Yeah, you play Texas. Basketball is the only sport where you can do that. Baseball's got like a couple of maybe fall games you can do, but that's fall. That's not spring. So you got to jump, feet first into it immediately. And that's, these games count. Like, these games are important because they're not going to decide what your season means. But when you're looking at the RPI, and we're still doing RPI in baseball, not net. When you look at the RPI rankings at the end of the season, you're going off of that sometimes to decide who's slotted where in the tournament. These games will mean something.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what we saw last year with Arkansas is they scheduled a lot of in-state schools, and I don't blame them. There is a convenience factor, but it killed them. It crushed them from the RPI. So they're going to schedule differently, and they have some big-game opponents, including 3 right out of the gates. And what that'll do, of course, is that if you can get those wins, you put some money in the bank, so to speak. And if you don't, it's not the end of the world. The SEC's coming. But it gets down to whether or not you want to host or not, or can host. And Paul Walker's just too perfect of a place not to host a regional, and I think we all missed out on not having that last year. Even though the ending was just what everybody wanted, it certainly is an easier path if you're able to host, and you host by winning games, early in the year against some of these RPI teams.
Brett, Matt Jones here. Phil's energy is contagious, so I'm getting some of this baseball hype, and I'm looking at these 6 teams going down there. Who are some of the players for somebody like me that's not as familiar with these teams that I should be tuning in to watch, that you're excited to get to see play in person?
Well, obviously, it's going to be fun to see Oklahoma State again. With you guys were talking yesterday about Brock Riggio and his flair and his uniqueness. And by the way, I apologize. I'm in the middle of nowhere, Texas at a softball tournament. You can hear the girls squealing and the foul balls smacking all over. But Texas is a little bit younger this year. I don't think they have quite the firepower that they did last season, but it's always fun when Texas and Arkansas get together. And TCU is a preseason favorite in the Big 12 as well. So, it's just great talent all the way around. I don't know if an individual standpoint it'll really excite you, but what it will is just the, exciting baseball. And I think Matt, part of the fun is just that there's so many Razorbacks that we've heard about, maybe we've seen from scrimmages, but we haven't seen a Caleb Cali play for a real game or a Hunter Holland pitch. And that's why I think Razorback fans are really going to enjoy seeing their guys and these newcomers go up against some of these Big 12 teams.
Do you think this is a team that will hit like we've seen recent Razorback teams? There's so many new players, new faces. I just sort of expect that Matt and Nate and Dave just, bring players in that know how to hit, and they're going to coach them up in a certain way, and they'll score the runs when they need to score runs. There'll be a home run hitting bunch. What do you think this is a team that's going to hit like we've seen recent teams?
Well, it's a great question. I don't think the power is going to be there, but I do think we're going to have fun watching them. To me, Caleb Cali is a lot of fun. I mean, Phil, if the Royals sent Bobby Witt to Fayetteville for 2 weeks to play in exhibition games or scrimmages before spring training, he wouldn't have done the damage that Caleb Cali has done and the shows he's put on. So that's a big bat. Obviously, if a guy like Jason Jones really isn't even in the mix at third base, when a year ago we thought he might be a first-round pick, it shows you how good he's been, or Kendall Diggs. And Josenberger is a fun guy, and that's why I think he is different than Razorbacks preceding him. I mean, he is a speed guy. He's got a little flair. I don't know if you had a chance to talk to him, Phil. He reminds me from a personality standpoint of an Opitz, a guy you want to be around, is always smiling and having fun. And he's not a home run hitter. He hit 2 home runs last year in the same game from both sides of the plate. And he joked with me and he said, well, it was a small fence. So he's not a home run hitting guy, but he is a guy that could hit 310, 320 and provide this team with a different look. And, if they scored the same number of runs, but it's in a different manner, I think we'll all be happy with that. I just don't know if they'll hit quite as many home runs, but I still think they can be a formidable offense as this non-conference schedule unfolds. And once we finally get to a little better weather in the SEC, would you have to be ready to hit facing the pitching that they'll see?
Phil, we were talking yesterday with some of the rule changes, and Phil was talking about some of the balks and the stolen bases. What do you think we're going to see this year that's going to be so different in college baseball with some of these rule changes? And are you in favor of them?
I am, and I'm really surprised they didn't go the full major league route regarding the shifting. It's okay, Matt, to have some differences between the college game and the major league game, and obviously no bigger difference than the bat. But I think over the last few years, with the power game, the lack of bunting, the lack of stealing, the shifting, they've looked a lot alike, the big league game and the college game. It will not this year because colleges will still be shifting. They're trying to get up to speed as quickly as they can in a few of those rules. I firmly believe next year they will do the no shifting and they will go just the same pattern that Major League Baseball has. But in a sense, we've kind of got a little bit of a testing ground. Colleges are trying to play faster. The pickoffs and the balks and everything, while still allowing shifting. So it's a bit of a laboratory right now, and I think, as we talked about before, I think there's going to be a few players that are going to have a hard time with it, but once we break them out of some old habits and kind of create some new habits, I just think it's better for the game. So I applaud everybody for kind of taking the willingness to just try and change when we don't need 4.5-hour college baseball games. As much as we love it, that's too much. That's not good for the product. So anything that speeds it up a little bit, I am in favor.
You're right, though, that the college game has come, and I think it depends on the level that you're playing. The SEC is like the big leagues, and so most of these teams are hit them high, hit them hard, so to speak. Just looking to hit it over the fence, and shifts are a reason why. I think at lower level colleges, like they'll still bunt, they'll still hit and run, they'll still steal bases and all that kind of stuff.
Is it because pitchers make more mistakes? The college game is why they can do that. I'm asking because I don't know. Is that why it's like, man, let's just get up there and swing at it?
I think that's a good question, but I also think it's just it's understood that there's a certain value to every out you have, and the way that you hit, and that the best way to beat the shift is to hit it over the shift. Yeah. If you and you know this, Brett, if the Red Sox are daring, some great left-handed hitter to hit a single through the left side, and he does, then they got him to do what they wanted him to do, which is not hit a home run, essentially.
Oh, absolutely. Or if you get Brady Slavens to even try and stab at a bunt with an open third base line, you've won. You're in his head. He's no longer trying to hit a home run. He's just trying to avoid the embarrassment of grounding into an infielder in shallow right. And, Phil, I go back to that example, kind of the Texas League. I know that's your area of expertise, but you could go out to a SEC game at Baum Walker over a weekend, and then you could go that night to a Naturals game. And you're seeing 4 or 5 players in that college game that will play in the big leagues. And as crazy as this is to say, you can go to a AA game and maybe see 1 or 2 guys who are going to play in the big leagues, even though they're 2 steps away, because the talent isn't there. The talent is in the SEC. And that's why, again, when you have these incredible athletes like Kerstad and go down the list, they're not there to bunt. They're there to swing and do damage and try and hit the ball as hard as they can and as far as they can.
Brett, before you go, I want to allow you to brag on your children here, because you are at a softball tournament where his daughter plays, and this girl rakes. Like, she can really hit.
Well, first of all, let me paint the picture for you. I'm in nowhere, Texas, so if I look beyond the left field fence, if someone hits a home run, they're going to have to go with the cattle in the swampy pasture and retrieve the ball. So it's 57 degrees. The feels-like temperature is 32. That's how much the wind is blowing today. So it was a nail buckler in our 8 a.m. game. It was a 1-0 win for the George Ranch Longhorns, and Kate Dolan drove in the winning run, much to Dad's delight. Coming off her performance where she hit for the cycle the other day in the first game, and Dad happened to miss that one. So right now we're kind of battling here in Game 2 so that I can get out of the cold and see a couple of games. So whatever we have to do to see our kids, right?
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's right. And don't mind everything Bubba says on the broadcast, okay? He doesn't really mean everything that he says. Not quite everything. But I'm looking forward to listening to you guys, because I'm not going to do the Flow Sports thing. I love radio. I appreciate you hopping on, Brett. Thank you.
BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from the NFL and bowl season to esports. You'll find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. We're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. BetOnline, where the game starts.